All right. Well, good evening or good morning or afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're in. I'd like to welcome you to the Naverisk Veep Geek series. My name is Michael Inzerillo, and I am the Vice President of Sales over at the Naverisk U.S. division. So here in the States, we are based out of sunny Tampa, Florida, and we're toughing it out at 85-degree weather, in case anybody wanted to know. Again, thanks for attending the session 2 of our new Veep Geek series. I'm excited. We've got a pretty good session today. We're going to talk primarily about sales prospecting as it relates to cold calling and such. And so we've got a good amount of attendees. And I'm kind of flying solo on this with no moderator this evening. So what that means is I'll be trying to answer questions as they come through, but more than likely I'm going to wait to the QA session at the end to kind of get to your questions. So if you do have questions, this is live. Please shoot them out, and I will do so. Let me go ahead and just kind of speak about what is the Veep Geek series for those of you that are kind of new to this and just kind of starting out. So the Naverisk Veep Geek series is kind of what you see here. It's a live interactive discussion for MSP owners or people involved in the MSP industry on everything related to MSP businesses and operations, right? So in our last one, we went over in session 1, we talked more about break fix versus managed services, and I am going to give a recap of that today, given some typical difficulties we had with recording that video. And for those of you that have been asking, we've had a slew of requests. Yes, the recording for session 1 will be up and available on Friday, right? But I am going to do a recap. But we discussed things like managed service practices, as you're going to talk about cold calling techniques. We're going to go into marketing. We're going to web design. We're going into, competing against other MSPs. Some really good topics of conversation. They're presented by different industry experts and special guests. So right now, you guys, you got me tonight, and my name's Mike Inzerillo, as I said earlier. Before I was an VP, I've been involved in this industry for almost 20 years now. Know all the ins and outs of just about every RMM solution. More of a security expert, started out with IBM and computer security out in New York City. So got a lot of hands-on real-world experience with the technology, but I'm also a business owner. I built and created with partners my own MSP. I have other businesses that are out there, and so I'm very familiar with marketing and kind of the tolls it takes on MSP owners and just general business owners on what it takes to operate those particularly successfully. All right, and so the Veep Geek series, really our goal is not to sell you anything. As crazy as that sounds coming from a sales guy, right? Our goal is to inform you. We really want to provide this as a value-add service to, number one, our partners who really have been asking for this type of content, and then in general, anybody that wants to learn more about managed services, IT service provider businesses, etc. Typically, I'll do a session or an overview of the Naverisk RMM suite at the end of this. Actually, today I think we're going to go a little long, so I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to just speak to kind of what the offering is and what we can do. All right. So with that said, as I mentioned, this is live. This is interactive. So if you have questions, please shoot them over in your GoToMeeting session. I also do see I have a little widget here from GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar that lets me see the screen refresh. So for some reason, I start talking slowly. It's because I'm waiting for the screen refresh to catch up for everybody. Hopefully the animations, I didn't put a lot of them in here, won't really hiccup the system too much. All right. But session 2, again, this objective is finding more business. And really it's ideal, as you see here, for anyone who owns or sells technology and more of the IT service provider or the managed service capacity who wants to get more business via prospecting. And specifically what I'm referring to with prospecting is that awful, dreaded cold calling. It's hard. No one wants to do it. But to date, it's still one of the most effective ways that managed service providers get new business. And so today we kind of want to crack that nutshell, if you will, and talk about what, some strategies on how you can approach this, what you can do, and how you can start getting involved to get more leads with cold calling. Yes, we are going to have other sessions on various other marketing techniques, web, mail, email, Google AdWords, etc. Today's focus, cold calling. All right, so with that, our agenda is as you see here. I'm going to do a brief recap. I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet, maybe 5 minutes or so, of what we talked about in session 1. And then from there, we're going to dive in, and we're going to talk about establishing sales goals, objectives, and measurements. And again, this is pertain to calling and making calls. We'll talk about some tips and techniques for making cold calls and how you want to approach it. And then how to get that appointment. What are some of those things that you can say? What can you discuss? What are some sample pitches and closing statements? And usually, I used to do this type of seminar with a consulting business that I own called IT Sales Coach. And the getting the appointment section of this is where most of the questions come up. Hey, I had this guy tell me this. I had this guy tell me that. How would you respond? If you have those questions, absolutely push them through. If you have specific examples that you want to get some feedback for and hear some advice, that's what this session is for. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and dive in. Session 1 recap. So the first session we really talked about, and this was a couple of weeks ago, what it takes, what's the differentiation between break fix and managed services, and how do you start incorporating break fix into managed services? And I'm not going to go through that whole strategy of how to convert and do that, but I wanted to really identify some key takeaways that we discussed there that certainly pertain to cold calling. All right. So in a nutshell, break fix services versus managed services. You kind of see the differentiation here. What we talked about last week was a break fix are more of that fix when broken mentality. You only get the call when the printer's down or the server's blown up or, something's amiss. Right? It's a reactive way. If I could point you to anything on this screen, it would be the bottom bullets. Break fix is a reactive way to manage technology, whereas your managed services, your objective as the service provider is to maintain it, not fix it when broken, but maintain it so it never breaks, and you are being proactive for IT management. Now, most of you know this. I've consulted with at least 200 or 300 customers, different MSP companies, and most of you get this, break fix versus managed services. The issue is how we communicate this to our clients. When you are asked by your client, well, what is managed services? You start saying, well, it's network monitoring, it's patching, it's this, it's that. We need to start framing this in terms of what is the value to that customer. And when you start looking at what this really is, managed services, proactive IT management, that is of value to the customer. And we're going to go into more of that on creating value propositions that are based on benefits and, as I'm going to discuss, risks. Now, one of the ways people define managed services, if you ask them that, I just mentioned our monitoring, patching, etc. The clear-cut definition, and I'll wait for this animation. There we go. The clear-cut definition by the all-omnibus Wikipedia is, as you see here, managed services is the practice of outsourcing day-to-day management, etc., etc., etc. If you give this definition to one of your clients, their eyes are going to roll over. Because what does this really mean? All right, I'm outsourcing management responsibilities. Number one, most clients don't like to even hear that or think that. And then it's for strategic method of improving operations and cutting expenses. Okay, that's great. But how does that pertain to a small business that's got 8 employees where everybody's wearing 4 different hats? It's just really hard to kind of get a grasp on what that is. So in my experience, the more successful MSPs boil the concept of managed services down to a specific offering that they do or something specific that's either general, if they're a technology generalist, IT service provider, or honed in on their specific niche market, like healthcare or law firms and things like that. So one example we talked about last week was the concept of mapping what you do and what you offer to eliminating risks. So based on that concept, a definition would be you help reduce or eliminate risks associated with managing technology for your business. So when a client asks you that, if you respond with this, hey, we're going to eliminate the risks associated with your technology, typically you're going to get a couple different types of questions. Well, what risks? Well, do you ever have a server go down? Do you have a virus? Did you ever spill something on it? We can help that. We can help you manage a business outage based on those proportions. It makes the conversation much easier to explain because it's going to prompt and promote questions. All right. Now, from a benefit standpoint, when you're mapping it against risk, here's how kind of it overlays. Oh, we eliminate your risk because all of your support is included. Your end users can call, and for some of you, I know you don't include all support, but you do like a hybrid. You include email and phone support and maybe some block time where anybody can call or a dedicated IT guy can call. Regardless, the support is included, and the support's included in an aim to better control costs and improve efficiency of the systems. And it's not just the efficiency of the technical systems, not just the servers and the monitors and things like that. It's also you're improving the efficiencies of their staff. And that's really a harder concept to convey, but it is a concept that small business owners will understand. And so they'll ask, well, if you're eliminating the risk or reducing the risk for my employees, they don't need to worry about going on Facebook or downloading something that they shouldn't or clicking on a website that they're unsure of, because I know you as my service provider got my back. I know you are managing and reporting on all of the things that could impact my business. So it makes them more efficient, helps them control cost, and as a partner you can position this as, look, we're a vendor, we're a partner that fully manages your IT proactively. You don't need to call us to fix something because chances are we're already on it. Okay, and so those are some of the client benefits. Notice what you don't see here in defining managed services: monitoring, maintenance, patching, AV, etc. Those are the tools. All right, we want to frame this in terms of benefits. I'm reiterating this because this is going to come up when we start talking about our calling techniques. All right, now the likelihood of your client adopting managed services depends on how much risk they're willing to tolerate. All right, and a great example that I had is, with our managed service practice here down in Tampa, one of the first markets that we attempted to penetrate and failed originally and then finally got it was real estate. And real estate services here in the States, or at the very least in the Tampa Bay area, are all contractorial type services. So all of the realtors are on a 1099 and they work under a broker. What that means is they pay for everything. They pay for their own expenses and things like that. So what we used to try out with realtors, where we found was successful, was we would offer a package where it was $80 to $120 a month. And what that package did was it monitored and maintained their system, their laptop, as well as we provided phone support for them on their laptop and mobile device. And more importantly, we backed up everything in the cloud, and we provided the Office 365 service. Right. And the reason for that is the risk that realtors feared the most was losing their laptop, or a laptop taking, a fall or spill or things like that. And because of that, if they do that, if you've ever worked with a realtor, ask them. If any of you are in the market for a home right now, ask them, well, if you just lost your laptop and your phone right now, what would you do? And they'll panic because all of their contracts are on there. Everything is on there. They live and breathe off their laptop. All right, so we eliminated that risk, or very drastically reduced it by providing, the SharePoint integration and cloud storage and things like that with Office 365, coupled with proactive maintenance and monitoring of their device. All right, so their adoption of managed services depended on that level of risk. And once you understand that and you kind of embrace that, now your conversations aren't about, what are the technical details that you're offering versus, the other guy up the road. It's, listen, these are the risks that your company is exposed to, Mr. Owner, and here's how I can eliminate or very drastically reduce those. Which ones are you willing to tolerate? Which ones are important to you or not? And that sets you up for a couple of different things. To give you an example, and I used this example last week, lawn care. Let's forget for a moment that you're a service provider. You have nothing to do with technology other than you've rigged an Xbox panel to control a lawnmower. You are now in the lawn care business. Now, a lot of people like to create service tiers and service offerings using the metal technology. I've got a bronze, silver, gold, platinum package, if you will. And it's very, very, at least here in the States, it's very, very overplayed, and it really doesn't describe anything. All right, I've got a gold package. Well, what's the difference between gold and bronze? Right? So what we used to advise with IT Sales Coach, and then again now with Naverisk, is create packages that make sense based on the value you're providing to your customer. Right? So for instance, if you were a lawn care service and you offered monitoring, you would tell your customers, look, we're going to run around the yard, detect the weeds and let you know when they're there, detect the overgrowth, against patios and things like that, and tell you where we see ant hills and bugs and all of these other things. Right? That's our monitoring. We're not going to fix any of it for you, but we will do this once a week, and at the end of the week, we'll hang a note on your door of where you need to go fix it. Okay? From a maintenance standpoint, now you're doing some stuff that's more proactive. I'll let this refresh. There we go. So from a maintenance standpoint, now you're doing all of the monitoring things, but you'll also fertilize so that you're preventing the weeds, and you're doing the pest control, and you're doing the Roundup or the grass killer on the patio so that it's not occurring. Right? You're still not taking care of the lawn per se, but you're monitoring the issues that are coming up and then reactively fixing them. So right now what we're still doing is reacting. Right? It's not that dissimilar than the break fix in the sense that they just don't need to call you. Where you're doing proactive stuff is in the management of it. So management, now you are proactively going out every week, cutting the lawn, trimming the bushes, doing the maintenance, and fixing anything that happens with a call. So if someone sees a brown spot, they call you, you're out there. It doesn't cost them a nickel more. All right. So if you think of that from a lawn care package standpoint, this is a sample, and I'm not saying that you have to use this, but I am saying that those customers that have used this have seen very great success. And so if you kind of parlay this into what a managed service package would look like, now it starts getting to the point where you can sell the value of just these three different buckets or these three tiers. From a monitoring standpoint, you're going to take care of hardware, software changes, patching, device, etc. They don't need to know that you're going to monitor things like that. You just, hey, we're going to tell you when things are changing on your device, and we're going to give you that report daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is. It's up to you to go ahead and fix that, Mr. Customer, but we will provide you with the knowledge of what is happening on your environment. Your risk is not eliminated at all. It's maybe a little bit mitigated because now you know. Right? Whereas from a maintenance standpoint, now we're going to react to the things that we find, proactively patch, go and do your software updates, your maintenance, etc. And by doing those, we're going to directly reduce the risk of antiviruses, the risk of downtime, of backups not happening, etc. Right? And now if you want our full-blown, everything we've got, you want us to manage your solution for you, that's not only going to reduce the risk and inform you. Now we're going to start reducing your cost because you're going to get efficiencies in the systems that we're monitoring and managing in help desk, email, backup, what have you. And again, this is just a sample. A lot of people have something like backup underneath the maintenance, and what they're including in the management are the newer technologies. Managed security are there, managed print services, which you see, MPS, mobile device management, MDM is certainly coming up, right? So you can picture these packages and then add and remove what you want and what makes sense for your offering. But what I would advise is that you get away from that metal mentality, gold, silver, platinum. Okay. All right, so what this should do by adopting this type of strategy and these types of tiers is get them to answer the question of what risks are they not comfortable with. Right? If you are fortunate enough to have a call and someone says, yeah, you know what, I'm interested in what do you have? And you present this to them. And you say, well, listen, I can inform you of the problems that you have on your network. I can fix the problems that you have on your network, or I can manage all of the problems you have so you don't ever have problems on your network. And all of those will have different risks associated with them. Which ones are you not comfortable with? Is your client comfortable with patching their own servers? And if they do and it goes down, then they got to fix it, right? So getting them to that question, what risks are they not comfortable with, will help you position your wares and your solutions much better, particularly when we start talking about closing conversations. Okay. The key takeaway from session 1, and we're about to dive into session 2 in a moment, the key takeaway of session 1 is to sell the benefits of risk reduction and as it relates to cost reduction that you offer. Right? Do not sell the technology. Do not sell the remote monitoring tool you're using. Hopefully it's Naverisk, but don't sell that. Don't sell the monitoring or even Office or any of that. Sell the benefit of their reduction in risks. Okay? This is why insurance is so popular. But very few people actually ever call insurance. And, if you're like most people, you'll use life insurance one time. That's it. But it's the risk that you're eliminating. The risk that in life insurance, your family is not going to be taken care of. if you suddenly pass away. You're eliminating that risk. That's what you want to do, right? Or at least, strive for. All right, so let's dive into session 2. Kind of using all of that information, we're going to start talking about sales goals, objectives, and measurements. And did this refresh? For some reason this is stuck. Let's just wait a minute. Okay, there we go. All right, so establishing sales goals. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it is important to establish goals and objectives. And a lot of people confuse the two, so I want to really going to go with this. For the purposes of this discussion, and I'll ask you to have an open mind. I know a lot of people are set in their ways on, all right, I've got goals, I've got tasks, I know what I have to do, particularly if they use something like MS Project. Keep an open mind. For this discussion, when we refer to a goal is typically vague, and it should be. It's used to describe the ideal thing, if you will, that you want to achieve. I say in here, a point in the future where ideals are achieved. But it's not just a point, it's something you want to achieve. And you see these all along websites and company portfolios and things like that. They're in mission statements and support services. So a lot of you are familiar with these. As an example, one of your mission statements might be, our goal is to provide the best customer experience for XXX. Okay, that's a very vague goal, and it should be, right? The objectives are the things that you specify to help you get to your goal, right? So it's different than the goal itself, right? Objectives are specific. You use them to achieve your goal, and they usually have a target date and some type of numerical measurement, right? So, okay, we're going to, and I'll go into some examples in just a couple of moments, but let's just leave it at that. Objectives are the things you need to get to a goal, and then from a task standpoint, tasks are the actions that you should do to meet the objectives. They're not always the things that you have to do, but the things that if you do them and you do them regularly, you have a better shot at meeting your objectives on time. Now, tasks are almost always quantitative in nature. You can count them. I need to do X amount of something. And the really good tasks have target dates, and specifically short ones, i.e. today, within the next hour, this week, what have you. Right? So we're going to be using a combination of those three. I'm going to be using goals, objectives, and tasks to define how we're going to approach cold calling specifically. And one of the first things that I would do when I would give seminars on this is help people create what we call a goal map. And a goal map was just that, those three things: goal, objective, and task. So rather than dive in and create a sales goal map, I want to get you comfortable with what do we mean by a goal map. Let's take an example of something like getting healthy. Almost everybody I talk to, everybody I know, in some point in their life, they've said, yep, I got to lose weight. All right. Well, translate to that. Well, I got to get healthy. That's my goal. The objectives help you meet the goal. So as my example, I would say, all right, I want to be healthy. But just in general, I don't have a specific target date. I want to be healthy. I want to feel healthy. My objective to being healthy is to, number one, lose 20 pounds by a specific date, January 1st. And then number two, I want to be able to complete a community 5K. And really why that's important to me is I'm tired of running up the block and being winded, or running up the stairs and not having, have to take 100 gazillion breaths of fresh air. Right? So I've got my objectives set. They have specific target dates and usually specific things I can measure. And then I've got, let me move my go to meeting session here. Then I've got my tasks that are sent as well. And so my task might be eat 5 small meals a day, 30 minutes a day. You can see what the tasks are. But you see that by completing those tasks, those will help me get to the objective. All right? Eating 5 small meals a day, walking 30 minutes, treating at classes. If I follow those repetitively over a certain amount of time, I probably should add there not eating, a bag of Doritos. But if I follow those tasks repetitively over a certain amount of time, I should foreseeably get to and achieve my objective, which will help me support my goal of getting and being, I should say, healthy. All right. Let's do a different example that's a little more common, something that almost all of you have probably experienced, is building a server, right? We're all geeks. All right. So I want to build and deploy a new server. Okay, great. And just as a note, I do see the questions. Let me just get through a couple of these things here, and I will start answering them. Okay. All right, so I want to build a server. I'll stand up a new server and deploy it. Really, I probably should have said what I want to do is deploy a server on a network. Right? So my goal is to stand up a new server, deploy a server. My objectives, I chose two. First one is prepare hardware. Second one is prepare software. Then it might be attached to network, etc. And then my tasks with achieving those objectives. Now, as technicians and analytical people, we do this by default. When someone says, I need this new server, or hey, you've got a new end user and we need a brand new computer. In your mind, you've already identified all of the things that need to be done to that computer. If you're smart, you've imaged the computer and you're just rebooting from image and making some changes. But there's still tasks nonetheless that you need to complete to meet your objective, which is getting that computer ready to go, right? Under the goal of providing support for your customer. Right? This is how those goals kind of intertwine and how it starts breaking up from goal, objective to task. From a sales standpoint, it is not that different. When you start establishing sales goals, and again, I'm really just talking about cold calling right now, not overall, right? It might look something like this. Now I'm going to use the example that really resonates with just about every IT service provider I've worked with. We want to increase revenue. Now where I'm going to take it a slight different twist is here we're looking at increasing revenue on a recurring basis, the MRR, the monthly recurring revenue. So for those of you not familiar with that term, I'm guessing you're still in the break-fix side of the house where revenue is reactive. People are calling you, and you have an idea of, all right, I know Joe the doctor is going to do anywhere between 4 and 10 hours of billable time every month. It's not really recurring revenue. What you want is something that you know guaranteed is coming in every month based on some program you've put together. I've given a couple of different ideas for the packages. One objective that you see here to increasing revenue might be sell 2 backup packages this month. This is a good objective because it could work for those of you that have managed service programs and those of you that don't. Chances are those people on the conversation here have a combination of managed services and break-fix, right? And usually we'll say something like a 60-40 split. Right, so selling 2 backup packages this month, that might be my objective. 2 backup packages within 30 days. Now, what task can I do to achieve that objective? First one might be, out of all the servers I manage, we'll say out of the 30, let me identify at least 15 of them that I should back up or should do something with. Maybe they've got bad disk space. Maybe there's a bunch of Windows events that are popping up, and faults and things like that you can use. And then once you've identified those servers that are at a higher risk, put together a pretty good email or call or some type of marketing piece and inform your clients about it. Hey, listen, we know these servers are at risk. Here's why. Here's all of the data I can provide you with. If you're in managed services, this is easy, especially if you're using something like Naverisk, because we're getting the health monitoring of the server, on intervals, And so you can run a report very simply, say, look, here's how your server has been deteriorating over the last week, month, etc. And so you can provide those program details and then do follow-up calls. And we're going to go through the management of how I manage the sales cycle. What I really want to focus on, though, is the second objective, because this can apply for really just about any other IT service provider out there. And that is sell 5 new managed service contracts. Notice I chose that, managed service contracts by January 1st, not break-fix. It's very hard to sell a break-fix contract because something has to break in order for you to prove your value. Okay, so the best way to sell break-fix contacts is actually through referral marketing and a couple of other techniques that we could do with kind of network marketing, and we're going to go over that in another subsequent session. But right now, managed service contract, that's the big one. Now, managed service contract has very specific tasks when you want to do cold calling into this or for this objective. One of the most important things you have to do is create an accurate list. All right, and this list is very important. All right, specifically, your list, your tasks, and your objectives need to be subject to your situation and your locality. So, for instance, if you're a managed service provider that only focuses or primarily focuses on healthcare and HIPAA regulation, you're never going to create a list, or you shouldn't create a list with law firms in it. Right? If you're a generalist, that's fine. Right? And then likewise, if you focus on law and specialty services, things like that. So creating the list based on what you offer is important. Creating the list based on your locality is important. Here in Tampa, there are over 9,000 small businesses in a 50-mile radius that are available to provide services to. So when we would create lists in the service provider company that I was involved with, we would create lists based on a 10-mile radius, so that when we started submitting and setting appointments for conversations, it was an easy drive. We could knock them all out in a day or two, and not have to travel all over town. Some of you don't have that option. Some of you are rural. Right? So you need to really strategically think about the list of people you're going to call. And that makes it's very important, because as you get in a role, for those of you not familiar with sales or comfortable with sales, you start getting on a roll, you start getting motivated, all right? And then you build momentum. You have one good call, then the next good call comes on, right? What you don't want to do is have to jump from having a conversation from healthcare to law to a guy that's in Orlando versus a guy that's in New York City, because it just kind of breaks up the flow. So create a good callable list. And for those of you that are partners with Naverisk, I'm going to have all this content is going to be downloadable on Friday, and part of that content also has sample call lists that you can do and a lot of other materials that are associated with the seminar. But create a call list that makes sense, and then start calling potential clients. Now here's probably, I don't want to say that's the number one mistake, but it's certainly one of the top three that most of my my clients have made. They pick a number out of thin air of what they think should be the amount of calls they make per day, and they say, that's my goal. And it's not. Say, my goal, you literally hear this, my goal is to make 40 calls a day. Okay, 40 calls to what? Right? That should never be the goal with cold calling. The objective of cold calling, and if you write anything down out of this whole seminar, write this down. The objective of cold calling is to get the next appointment, period. You don't want to sell your services on the first call, not on a cold call. On a closing call, yes. On the first call, you want to identify if that prospect is valid. I mean, is it somebody that you want to have as a client based on, various criteria? Do they have the budget? Do they have the time? We typically use budget, time frame, and need, right? But it's a little bit more for an MSP. Do they have the budget? Or do they have some really weird, and kind of obtruse software that you have to support that you know nothing about? Do you want to take that type of stuff on? Your objective for the first call is finding out that information, and then, if you want them as a client, trying to get the appointment. And so with that, a better way to design goals for cold calling would be based on the number of either conversations, which is why you see it in pink, fuchsia, whatever that is, conversations, and then appointments. Right? So what I used to advise people when I would do, and I would do a lot of shadow calling with MSPs, at the last gig at IT Sales Coach. And so I would sit on the phone with them and say, forget the number of calls you make. What you want to focus on is having a conversation with the right person, the business owner, typically. Right? That could take you, if you want to target 8 conversations a day, the minimum calls you need to make is 8. It could take you 8, it could take you 20, it could take you 40. This is one of the reasons I recommend that you have a call list of 3 times what you think it's going to take. Right? So if you say, well, I know it's going to take me 20 or 30 calls for me to get 8 conversations, okay, then you should have 60 to 90 different companies that you can call into. All right? And then once you get those conversations, your goal is to schedule 2 appointments. You want to get the follow appointment. And it's on that appointment that you are then describing how you're going to solve their problems. And that's what we're going to focus on the next webinar is, all right, now that I've cold called, now that I've got the appointment, what do I say? Is it a phone appointment for the second one or an on-site? What do I say? How do I present that? All right, so let's just kind of wrap up again. Goals, objectives, tasks, those are the things that you want to start thinking of, particularly to cold calling. All right? And so with that, let's start cutting into cold calling tips and techniques. But before I do that, there's a key thing that you're going to need to remember. before you even pick up the phone to try to make a sale, to try to call. And this is it. This is actually, I should say, the number one thing that I think MSPs get wrong. They refuse to believe or acknowledge the fact that they are the sales guy. They are the primary sales guy, right? Look yourself in the mirror. You're the sales guy. Whether you're a geek, whether you're an expert in Linux or hacking or Windows servers, that doesn't matter. If you are the MSP owner, you are the primary sales guy. If you don't make any revenue, you don't eat. Your family doesn't eat, your business falters, and you can't effectively support and help your other partners. Right? So you really need to understand that you are responsible for generating revenue. And there are various ways to get around that. A lot of people, when you start digging it down and you talk about the psychology of why people don't want to say they're a sales guy, it's because sales has that bad connotation. I'm trying to sell something. They think a used car salesman's always there, right? Some even say lawyers or politicians. They're all in sales, right? Instead of that, if that's really what the stumbling block is, forget sales guy. So actually, what I am is the entrepreneur. I am the businessman. I am the business owner. And I'm the business owner that provides something of value to other business owners. And by looking at it and framing it from that standpoint, it's easier to accept. But ultimately, the end result is the same. Your objective is to generate revenue for your company, i.e., you're the sales guy. And if you're like most MSPs, you're sales, you're marketing, you're the chief engineer, the CTO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Now, as that relates to leads, I used to do a lot of seminars, and one of the most common things I would do is a practice called cups on a table. And I wish I could do that here. I should have put some video and some pictures. I'll probably do that next time. Cups on a table is pretty cool, and really what I did with this is this. We'd have a huge room of 100 to 150 people out in the audience, and what we would do is they would all walk in and see 50 cups, 50 red Solo cups, just like you see there on the table. And everyone got flashbacks to their college days where they thought about beer pong and flip cup and things like that. But no, they would see 50 cups on the table, all turned over. And what we do is underneath those cups, we put a $20 bill here, a $10 bill there, nickels. Some would be empty. One time I put a half-eaten donut. So we just kind of had some fun with it. And so everybody would sit down in there and would say, okay, these cups represent basically leads. And so everybody here has the ability to come up and pick a cup, and I'd hold up a cup and say, it's $20 right here. You can pick up a cup, and whatever's underneath it, you keep right here, right now. You take it home. The only thing that you need to do to have the opportunity to pick up this cup is stand up, walk to the front of the room, and tell us your name and the name of your company. Your first name, last name, and name of the company. How many of you are willing to do that? And almost all of them would raise their hand, right? It's a no-brainer. Well, here's my name of the company. Okay, great. Guess what? That's the first step in any sales, is identification. Who are you? Okay, well, this is what I would say. Well, you've got 100 people here. We only have 50 cups, so we've got to make it a little bit more challenging, obviously. So now when you come up, you've got to say your name of the company, and let's add to it, you have to tell us what you offer. And you'd see a couple of hands go down, and usually it would go down to, probably about 80 or so, 70, 80. A lot of people don't want to really say, oh, well, I offer managed services. Most people say, well, what do I offer that's different than the guy standing next to me? So they don't raise their hand and they don't come up to the front of the room, right? Still, too many people for the amount of cups on the table. So, all right, we really need to make this challenging. You need to come up and tell us what you offer. You need to do that in less than 10 words, and then you need to tell us what it's going to cost us, okay? And almost simultaneously, you'd see half of the hands go down. Nobody wanted to either tell the cost of what they were doing, or they didn't want to have to think about telling what they offer in such a short amount of words. One guy's was great though. He's like, yeah, we help small businesses manage technology. So how hard is that, right? But other people were thinking, well, how am I going to get monitoring? How am I going to manage? I can't get that in under 10 words. But the net result was you ended up getting this long list of people down to 30 people. And so 30 people would come up, and I would say, all right, great, you guys, you're the 30 people. 30 people now have the ability and the opportunity to select from 50 different cups. And then you look to the audience and say, all of you just lost out. Now that is what is happening, and that is the more common thing that we see in communities all across, well, at least here in the States, is that of 100% of the MSPs in any given community, actually it's not 30%, it's 10 to 15% are actively calling on other businesses in the area to try and get new business. And the other 85% are ignoring it. They are waiting for it to happen for them. And so the best thing that I would say to them is the only way that you'll get, and this is what we'd say, the only way you'll get a cup of cash is to be at the table in the first place. You have to be comfortable with not only sharing some information about yourself, but also pitching and putting it, positioning it in such a way that it makes sense, that it's easy to say. All right? Give yourself the opportunity to make sales. In the real world, take the solo cups out of here, the way you do that is through cold calling. There is no other medium you can do it. People could say, well, all of my marketing is done through Google AdWords. Great. Google AdWords is reactive. You are hoping that somebody will click on your link. Email marketing, you're hoping someone will reply. Telemarketing, you're hoping somebody wants you to call them back. This is one of the few proactive ways, other than door-to-door, one of the few proactive ways that you can build revenue and build your business. And it's very important if you want to get to that next level that you adopt that and you realize that it's okay to do this. All right. Now, calling tips and techniques. It's not hard. It's really not. As a matter of fact, most of the clients I'd work with, after the first hour of literally just getting on the phone, hanging up, dialing the next number, they were done. They had it down. All cold calling boils down to primarily two different things. Preparation, which if you're smart, you'll do the night before. This way you're up and running, ready to go. And repetition. Hang up the phone, pick it up, go again. So let's talk about preparation. And let me let this refresh. Okay. So, preparation. Now, defining objectives. We kind of already discussed that, so I don't really want to go a lot into it again. Make sure your objectives are particular to what you offer and how you offer it, and where you offer it, your location. Right? So if you're healthcare, your objective should be healthcare based. I want to look for these types of providers, doctors, specialists, etc. A different type of objective is we have, or I've consulted with a good amount of customers that are generalists. They'll accept any client, but that client has to provide a minimum of $2,000 to $3,000 a month in recurring revenue. Okay, if that's it, then obviously you're looking for businesses of a particular size, or of a particular revenue scale. Might be a law firm that is making $2 million, but they only have 2 people. They can afford that, right? Again, then you start going into the risk that lawyer has, etc. But define objectives as it relates to your specific situation and your location. First part, creating lists. Love this. Who are you going to call? It's the Ghostbuster mentality. Are you going to call Ghostbusters? Probably not. Well, not unless they have computer issues, right? So you want to create the list of viable people, viable businesses that you can service, right? Don't be calling pizza shops that don't even have computers. Don't call, gyms that don't have computers, things like that really aren't going to create revenue. Okay? On a similar note, one of the things that I mentioned in the last session, in session 1, we were talking about network marketing, was offering some services for free. Going to something like a local community, like a Lions Club, and saying, hey, I'll manage all of your computer services for free. But what I want is the ability to send out a monthly newsletter to every one of your members that you give to them. Okay? When you're doing a call list, do not call those people. Your primary objective for calling should be to meet your goal. And your goal is to increase revenue. So it's not going to help you to call people that you're going to give your services away for free. So create lists that make sense and build the list based on your objectives. The second part of preparation for cold calling is your mindset. And I'm not just talking about, adopting that you are a sales guy mentality. You are what you think. You need to be that business person. You need to open up as soon as you get at your desk and before you pick up the phone. If somebody asks you, okay, what do you do? I'm a sales guy or I'm an entrepreneur. Which do you want to be? Most will say, well, I'm an entrepreneur. Or I'm a businessman. Well, I'm a businessman. All right, well, what do you do? I help other businesses manage technology. Okay, that's a better way of saying it. It's a better way of thinking it. Right? Are you really selling them something? Sure. But the hidden truth to selling is to get that person or get that company to want to buy from you in the first place. Not for you to sell them to something, but for you to show them what a great job you can do in managing X, technology, services, etc., that they want to buy that from you. Okay, that's the ultimate, right? That's the euphoric moment. So you want to adopt that mindset. For those of you that have never heard of kind of something like Brian Tracy, he's got some excellent tapes. They're old. They're 20, 25 years old. I still listen to them once a month. I really do listen to them once a month. Same thing with the kind of like the Rich Dad series, right? And what they focus on in those things are the mindset of you're the best. You'll hear Brian Tracy say that all the time. The top sales producers will approach every call going, I am the best person. I offer the best value for this business I'm about to call, and I know what I'm talking about. If they ask me questions on servers or hardware or Linux or anything like that, I can answer it no problem. I am ready to go. So adopt the proper mindset to prepare yourself to make the call. And then once you have that, once you know that you are that businessman that can provide good value, creating your value proposition will be a lot easier. And again, you don't want to sell technology. You don't. You want to sell the benefit of what you are offering. You are not offering monitoring. That's what you're doing. It's not what you're offering. You're not offering AV management. Right? You're doing those things. What you are offering is risk reduction. What you are offering is peace of mind. You're offering cost reduction. So think of those benefits in the terms of one businessman offering another businessman something and prepare it in a sentence. And if you really can try to get it down to 10 words. This one said, well, what is it that you do? I do this. I help, from a healthcare standpoint, I help healthcare providers meet HIPAA compliancy regulations. Less than 10 words. Now, anybody that's in that market, they know exactly, okay, really you do. That's great because I have some issues with HIPAA. Or why is that important? If you're lucky, you'll get, well, why do I need that? I'm a dentist. I don't need healthcare compliancy for HIPAA. Oh, well, actually you do. A couple of those things. So you want to prepare that in one sentence, and then as I kind of just did, have a follow-up statement or some follow-up areas ready. And some of the resources I'm going to provide for downloadable content, we have they're called call trees. So you'll have a position statement and then call trees underneath it. And it's not supposed to make it a structured call. It's supposed to drive you to a conversation to find out more information. So when someone says, just like I did, well, I provide healthcare professionals with an ability to help them be HIPAA compliant or manage HIPAA compliancy. And someone says, well, why do I need that? What's your follow-up statement? Why do you need that? Well, actually, everybody needs that. But aside from just the law, here's how it benefits your business. Customers like you, they've experienced X, X, and X. Then it's okay, well, I didn't notice that. I'm not experiencing that, or I am having issues with this. All right, so have your follow-up statements ready that drive you to ask different questions. All right, so once you prepare for these calls, you've got your objectives, you've got your list, your mind is ready, you're rock solid, it's 9 a.m., I'm ready to go, I've got my pitches down. Now it's just making the calls and repeating this. Repetition is going to be the key. And I hate to say this, it must become a daily habit for you. Most MSPs that I know, most IT service providers that I know out there, well, actually I said it right, that offer managed services. If you ask them, well, if you manage a couple hundred devices, is there a day that you come in and not look at the ticket list or not look at a network health report to see what's going on for your clients? They would laugh at you and say, no, there's no way. I do that every day because that's what I do. I'm Geek. Every day I want to see what problems are out there for my clients. I want to reactively fix them. Great. That is a daily habit that you chose to adopt because of your comfort level, because you are a geek. Sales and cold calling, if you want to grow your business, must become a daily habit. And is it going to happen overnight? No. What I usually recommend is pick 4 days this month that you're going to start. Next month, pick 1 day a week. The month after that, pick 3, then go. And within 4 months, this all of a sudden becomes a daily habit. Now, usually the question becomes, well, I'm going to run out of people to call. No, you're not. Unless you've got every single business in your area underneath a managed service contract, you'll never run out of people to call. As long as you adopt that other mentality that no isn't no, no really means not yet. Okay? So making this a daily habit, cold calling, preparing my mindset, delivering my value proposition, getting on there, making 20 calls. Once you do that and you start having those calls and you find that magic formula, kind of like what I discussed earlier with us entering into real estate, we found out that the magic formula was Hey, these realtors really just don't want to lose their laptop and their phone, God forbid, because then they can't take calls. That's the magic formula. Create a package against it, and now we can explain how we reduce or eliminate that risk for them and how that $80 a month is nothing for them to reduce that risk. Once you find that magic formula, call as much as possible. One of the things that people typically do that are successful in this, right, is let's say you set your goal that I've got 8 appointments that I want to make today. And in the first hour, you make 8, and you did it in 10 calls. A lot of people go, okay, I'm done. I did what I need to do. Let me go back to managing the time. Let me go back to checking my fantasy scores. Let me go back to whatever else you're doing. Forget that. If you found the magic formula, that is gold in the sales side. All right? If it's really working and it's really clicking and you've got your pitch down, and you've got your value proposition down, and you're in the zone because your mindset is you're providing value. People want to speak with you. Don't ever stop doing that. Don't stop your calls. And I'm not just saying on the one day. If you're experiencing this 2, 3, 4 days in a row, keep going. Keep going until it stops. Repeat it as much as possible. If it doesn't stop, find somebody else to teach it to so that you have 2 people calling, and do it as much as you can. That is the way to generate a groundswell. That is the way to get your name out. It's the way to generate revenue. All right, so calling tips, techniques. You're getting them call, you've got them on the phone, or you're picking up the call, you're picking up the call. What do you want to do? What do you want to say? First, let's talk about some things. Let me wait for this to refresh. Here we go. It says 100%. All right, so what are some of the things that we know that work during a cold call? All right. And this is, I apologize for we've got a lot of people on here that are worldwide, so I apologize for this. This is really subject to what we know in the States based on some statistics that we pulled from some various sites. So here in the States, we know that you're going to have a higher success rate calling on Tuesdays and Fridays, particularly between 8:30 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. Right? And that kind of makes sense, right? People come back from a weekend, all right, here it's Monday, no one wants to do anything, or they have to do so much. Tuesday's a day to kind of level set. Okay, let me get my week ready, if you can imagine that. Start around 8:30, 9 o'clock. So if you're trying to get in touch with the owner, the business owner, or bypass the gatekeeper, the secretary, the office manager, you could try between those times. Again, this is subject to also the list that you have. I'll tell you now, with our MSP practice, we never got a lawyer on a Friday, let alone at 10 a.m. on a Friday. Right? So law firms, they're just not open on Fridays. Right? So it's subject to the list that you're controlling or the list that you have. Right? Second thing, first names create better comfort level with the prospect. I'm going to show you some opening statements where you use a first name approach. But in short, if you can use a first name, if you know them by first name, use it. A lot of people make the mistake of going, hi, is Mr. Jones there? Mr. Jones, is it okay if I call you Bob? Forget that. Because when somebody says no, you've created a very, very awkward level in the sales process that's going to be hard to overcome. Just call them Bob. Hey, Bob, listen, I wanted to call and discuss X with you. Right? Always try and use first names, and this is statistically proven across just about any sales field. When you use first names, they create a better comfort level, with one exception. And here's the exception. Salutations. And I don't mean Mr. or Mrs. I mean things like doctor. I mean things like general or congressman. Right? So when you have a salutation of someone that's kind of an earned professional, we'll say, doctors, they're earned. They went to school for 50 years to become a cardiologist. Yeah, you want to call them doctor. Is Dr. Jones there? All right. Now you can shorten it. Hey, doc, listen, this is what I'm thinking of. Right? Be casual, create the level of comfort. That's really what you're aiming to do. Replace I's with we's. This is kind of a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised even just record yourself on any call. I used to do this when I was trying to train myself. Right? Record yourself on any call and see how many times you used the word I versus we. I know I've used it at least a dozen times in just this session alone where I shouldn't have. Right? By creating and using the word we, you're creating partnerships subliminally. Right? And I'm not just talking about it in the pitch. When someone says, well, what do you do? Instead of saying, well, I manage network computers. No. Well, we manage computers. We reduce risks. We reduce costs, etc. It's not just in your pitch. You could also use we, and you should use we, when you're talking about how you're going to solve their problems. Well, you're having some issues with your printers. Well, I'll tell you what, here's what I think we should do. You'll hear very good salespeople say that because now you're in it with them. This is part of your problem, and you're the one going to be solving it for them. Okay? So use the term we. Just a little tip. Smiling on the phone. Doug, I love you. I used to have a sales guy called Doug, or named Doug, called and named Doug. So I used to have a sales guy named Doug, and Doug was a pretty good sales guy. There were a couple things we needed to improve with him. Two specifically. The first one was really just getting his objectives more in line. Doug would wait to the end of the month to try and do 100% of his sales. And so we changed that. We said rather than do a monthly sales quota at the end of the month, let's do 80% of your sales by the 15th of the month. So we changed that, which then in line changed all of his tasks that he needed to do. And the second change that Doug made was he smiled on the phone. Smiling on the phone is noticed on the other side. When someone is passionate and they're happy, that comes across. If you want to get me happy, let me start talking about my son. I've got a 5-year-old. He's in karate. He's doing really well. He's going to be 6, and he's almost a green belt. He's actually really moving really fast. But as I do that, you can hear the exuberance. You can hear me smiling. I get passionate. It's generating good vibes on the other side. If you don't want me to smile, let's start talking about taxes. God forbid, let's start talking about traffic in the Tampa area and how they design roads here. Right? A simple thing. Smiling helps you really kind of break down the barriers when it comes to positioning. And I know that sounds really weird. I don't mean positioning in the term of, or in the sense of, I should say, the words that you choose, in the inflection of the words. Okay? When you're smiling and you're telling what you offer of value, you can't help but say it in a positive way. The chances of it coming out negatively are very, very small. Right? So you want to smile as much as you can. The second thing it does is it helps reinforce that proper mindset when you're preparing. If you have to go in and you say, look, I know it's 9 a.m. I'm ready to pick up the phone. Mike said to smile. First thing you're going to do is say, well, what do I got to smile about? And then you'll suddenly think of something you can smile about. And that will make you smile. I'll think of my kids. I'll think of, hey, it's Friday. Geez, I got a weekend coming up. Or, hey, my fantasy football team is just really rocking right now. I know what I'm doing. So smile. And then finally, ask questions that make them speak, and that's part of it. But then listen, listen, listen. I can't drill that in enough. A lot of people like to ask questions, and here's what they'll do. Hey, you having any network issues? Yeah, well, we have this printer, and this printer just keeps jumping offline. It's an HP, and just as that person's about to tell you more, you're jumping in with how you're going to fix it. Oh, yeah, so-and-so has that. We can fix that here, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Stop. Ask the questions that make them talk and listen until they stop talking, and then ask them some more. Your objective for the first call, for the first phone call again, is information gathering. You're the recon team. You want to know about as much of the issues and challenges that they're having that you can fix for them. Right? And keep your objective in mind. When you are doing cold calling, when you are on the phone, your objective is not to sell them something. Is it going to happen? Yes. And there are times where I'll actually say that, and that'll work great. People say, Mike, everything you're saying it seems really good. This is what I want. Let's talk about pricing. Okay, great. Let's talk about pricing. I'm ready to buy. I say, you know what? I'm glad that you're ready to buy. I still want to come on site, though. I would still like to meet you face-to-face. I want to take an inspection. I want to see what's going on and make sure that we really can help you. When you say that to somebody that's ready to buy, now you've got a partner for life. I mean, they're going to be a client for life. Well, at least as long as you don't screw it up, right? But it's just a much more valuable way of trying to sell it. Your objective for the first call is to get that appointment. That's your objective. It's not to sell them on something. It's not to inform them of something. It's not to offer them something for free. It's to get them the appointment. All right, so let's talk about a couple of sample openings. I do see the questions. We're going to go over probably about 5 minutes or so. I'll just wrap this up real quick. All right, so sample openings. The first name approach. And I'm going to present you 3 here on this session. Again, for the materials that you can download, I've got a list of 10 of them. By all means, if you have questions, shoot me an email, even give me a call. I have no problem helping any of our partners. All right. Sample opening, first name approach. This is a common one, short, easy, sweet. Right? You're calling up a prospect and you say, hi, is John there? Oh, I mean Mr. Jones, please. This is Mike from NetConnect, and I'm calling about some of the computer issues you may be having. So what am I doing here? Number one, I'm employing a first name. I'm asking for John, and then I'm correcting myself by asking for Mr. Jones. Subliminally, if you have a gatekeeper, this works great if you know that there's a gatekeeper involved, like an office manager, because in her mind she's going, does this person know John, or do they have a relationship with him? And typically you'll get that question. Do you know Mr. Jones? Say, well, no, not really. I'm Mike from KickNet, but I am calling about some of the issues that you're having. All right. So now their next question inside is, did Mr. Jones call them about computer issues we're having? All right. And when we've done this approach with other MSPs, I've used this in shadow calling, and those are the common questions. And if you're really lucky, what you'll get is, oh, did he call you about that server that keeps failing? Or did he call you about X that keeps failing? Actually, and then you respond, actually, no, he didn't, but tell me a little bit more. Let me write that down. What's happening with that? And then you get a whole litany of a perspective of what Sandra, the office manager, is having an issue with. And now your conversation with the owner is a lot easier. Hey, listen, John, Sandra and I were talking, and she was sharing some of the challenges you guys are having with the servers. I really think I could help. Can we get an appointment, etc. So you could try the first name approach, the similar issue approach. This is a great one, especially if you kind of have an established practice already, or an established server provider business already, in the sense that you want to use this where you already have a client, and then you call around the area of those clients. And it goes something along this type of script, right? Good morning. This is Mike with NetConnect, and actually I'm calling about some of the computer and network issues that our clients are having in your area. I was actually hoping to speak with someone at the site that see if you might be experiencing some of the similar issues. Is Mr. Jones that point of contact? All right, so what you're doing here now is you're letting them know that you're local. You're letting them know that they have other clients in the area. Again, all subliminally. Okay. And what you're, again, from a gatekeeper standpoint, is the question you're asking them is Mr. Jones the point of contact? You're not asking them, do they have network issues? All right. And so by them saying yes or no, you've already established who the gateway is. Okay, well, is Mr. Jones the point of contact? Actually, yes, he is. All right, is he available for me to just speak to him about some of these issues that we keep seeing popping up? Oh, well, what issues are you talking about? Well, we just dealt with Angie's Cafe, they're right up the road, and they're experiencing a lot of issues with relation to power outages. And the power outages you guys have been having locally have been causing, wreaking havoc on their backups. They've lost a couple of systems, et cetera, et cetera. Just want to see if you guys are experiencing some of these things similarly. Okay, yeah, hold on, let me got you. Or actually, yeah, we are. We just had a server come out last week. It's a very good approach to doing that. Very similar to that approach is actually one that I kind of co-designed with another MSP. I don't have permission to really tell you who it is because they're a rather large one. It's the security approach. Okay. Now this one, I don't want you to lie here. I don't want you to go out and tell other customers, hey, you got a security issue. I need to speak with someone. Where this is valuable is a very similar situation as the sample above. If you have other clients that are out there that you are managing, and you happen to have a wireless laptop, which almost all of us have wireless laptops, and you see that there are other locations around you where network security is not secure, those are excellent leads that you should follow up with. And so the security approach will go, kind of what you read here. My name is Mike with NetConnect, and I wanted to speak with someone about your network security and really just kind of give them a heads up. I manage the networks for Angie's Cafe across the park, and I came across some things on your network that really aren't secure. Now, this is sort of an attempt to sell by fear, which I don't advocate. Right? It's really, in a sense, an attempt to inform. Right? So you have, three, for those you have taken public speaking, you have three different things: speech, persuade, inform, and actuate. So here I'm trying to inform someone, hey, you might have some potential network risks there. If you can get the right guy on the phone, and then you follow that up with, is Mr. Jones that point of contact? I know he's the owner over there. Oh yeah, sure he is. Let me put you through. Well, wait, what type of network issues or security issues do you think we have? I saw a couple of routers that were unsecure, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but my clients over here are having issues with malware and AV, and this can certainly pop over to your network if it's unsecure. So I just wanted to talk with someone over there and make sure that you guys are properly patched. That's a great way to start a conversation. You're not, it's not Truman. It's a legitimate concern. Obviously, I don't recommend you go and hack somebody, do that. But if you find those types of situations where they don't have that and their security is very weak, you can do things like that. Okay. All right, I see the questions piling up. Just give me 2 more slides. I'm done. All right, sample closing. So you got them on the phone. You're talking. I'm not going to do. It's hard to do sample pitch closings because it's really all based about the conversation. Right. All right. So let's just do with some things you don't want to say. You don't want to say things like, "Well, Bob, if you want, I can come on out tomorrow," and et cetera, et cetera. It's a very passive, weak way of asking for the appointment. Just ask for it. Bob, I'd like to come on out tomorrow. Similar. You don't want to say, well, do you mind if we get together on Friday and I'll take a look, et cetera, et cetera. You don't want to do that. It's passive. Similar to the third bullet. I'm only out there on Thursdays and I'd like to stop by then. This isn't necessarily passive, but now it's subject to your schedule and your availability. All right? What you really should be doing is basing it on their availability. So things you would want to say, aside from just kind of the opposites of those don't say things. Well, Bob, we've solved similar issues for other X, let's say other law firms. And if you're open to it, I'd like an opportunity to come by this week and see how we can help you. Right? Still a little bit passive, right? But what you're doing is you're setting them up for them to either say, yes, I'd love for you to come out, or no, I don't want you to come out. And a lot of people, when they hear no, they get very scared and they are afraid to ask why the person said no. Don't ever do that. Right? If Bob says, well, I'd like an opportunity to come out this week and see if we can help, if you're open to it. No, I'm really, I'm really busy this week. I noticed that you said no. Just out of curiosity, is this something that's not interested to you, or are these challenges that you really don't have, or are you just comfortable with managing your own IT? At the very least, what you will identify is whether or not you want to pursue this lead anymore. Okay. Same thing. Mary, our management package is designed to eliminate the issues that you're having with AV and backups. This is useful. Let me start with that. The second one is useful when during the call you've got some really clear-cut issues that you can solve, and they're a viable candidate. Maybe they don't have another they don't have another MSP doing this for them. Right? So that I can solve these problems. This is where you'd use that second one. Well, we've got packages designed to eliminate these issues, reduce these risks that you are having with your AVs and backups. I could come by tomorrow at 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. and fix a couple of these things immediately and then show you what I'm referring to. Which one of these times works better for you? Now you've changed the conversation in this. Right? You're not asking, hey, is it okay if I come out? You're actually telling her, I'm coming out. Which time is better for you? Is it better at 10 or at 2? Right, from a sales standpoint, this is similar to what we call a presumptive close. And we do a lot more closing techniques in the third session, which is the session after this. Right? But this is more of a presumptive close. You are assuming and presuming that they're going to be interested in your business and that you could offer it, and you're trying to close on, in this case, the appointment. Right? The presumptive close, when we're talking about closing, is closing on the offering that you're going to make. All right, so again, I've got a list of 10 sample closings, a list of 10 opening pitches as downloadable resources should be available by Friday. All right. I know we're running a little bit behind, so just to recap, typically we have 60-70% of our attendees here are Naverisk partners. So for them, just bear with me. Naverisk Suite, for those of you that don't have Naverisk, we are a remote monitoring and service desk solution. So we offer, really all the things that you need in remote monitoring: network discovery, device auditing, patching, service desk, etc. You kind of see the list here. I think some of the things that really sets us apart from other solutions out there, either ones that you're using or that you're not aware of, is number one, we are 100% cloud-based. So you can access us. There is no client install. You can access us on an iPad, on a laptop, wherever you really need. And that's advantageous for those of you that really have technicians, because if they have to provide on-site services and they don't have their laptop, they can very easily hit a website, log in, document their time in the ticket, close it, move on to the next client. They don't need to lug a laptop around. They don't need to install a mock-thin client or RDP to some other solution, etc. Cloud-based is big for us, and not a lot of other RMMs can really say that they are 100% cloud-based. Second differentiation is we're fully managed for you. We do offer an on-premise solution, but our most popular solution is our cloud option. And it's popular because it's not just a rack space server, let's say, that we're throwing our software on that then you need to manage. Here's a fully managed solution for you. We own and manage the servers, all of the bandwidth, the backups, the redundancies, the utilization, all of it. The only thing you need to focus on is administering the software. We don't want you to have to focus on managing and administering the server that the software runs on. Right? As I mentioned, we're all in one. We've got service desk, and really what I mean by that is we've got remote monitoring, service desk, time tracking, billing, remote control, etc. A lot of other RMM solutions you got to kind of add or cobble multiple solutions to get to this. We provide one solution, one price per agent per month, and that's it. There's not all these different add-on feeds and network fees and things like that. And to that extent, it makes us very, very affordable. Typically, I'll be lying to you if I told you we're the lowest cost solution. We're not. But as far as value, I absolutely say we're the best and value solution for managed service providers. We offer an exceptional price point, and we'll price match just about anybody, but we offer an exceptional price point, and because we don't have all these other hidden fees and everything, as you use us, it's just easy. When you want another agent, just deploy it, and you know it's the cost of that agent. It's not, oh, I've got a new location cost, and then I've got a report cost, and this and that. We don't do any of that. All right, so with that said, I see we've got a list of questions. Let me go ahead and load these up. Okay. So bear with me. I'm going to attempt to read all of these. All right, so the first one. Okay, that's in no particular order. I'm scrolling through this and just picking ones I know I'm going to answer. How often do you scrub a call list for numbers that never pick up? So that's a good question. Inevitably you're going to have 60 names, 100 names on a call list. You're going to make calls, and you're just never going to get answers. Me personally, if I make a call to some business and I just cannot get them 4 times, then I will eliminate them from the call list. That's what I'll do. Now, what I mean by eliminate from the call list is I'm taking them off that call list. That doesn't mean I'm throwing that number away. Right? Then I have another list that I do month to month, which is exactly what that is. It's hey, I never got in touch with these people. Let's just do random calls to them and see if we can get somebody. Right? That's different than if you have people that are just telling you no. Right? So if you have people that are saying, listen, I've heard, I love what you've got, but I'm just not interested at this time. Great. What you want is your follow-up. It's a follow-up appointment. It's a follow-up email. Hey, can you mind if I send you some mailing, some literature, any of that stuff? Keep them on the call list for next month or for X month. Okay? Similar, what can I do if they just keep saying no? That's a hard one, and it really depends on how they say no. And I really do say this, I've managed large sales teams before, internationally, I've managed small sales teams. I am a working sales manager now, or sales VP, where I've got a team I manage and I do my own sales. Get no all of the time. You have to be comfortable with it. No really usually means not yet. And the reason it's not yet is because you have not provided the value. You have not convinced them that the benefit to using you is of value to them, or more importantly, that the risk of not using you could cost them business or cost them money. All right. In the traditional situations where I see that the most, is particularly in the MSP side, is where people that you call, that a client will call, will already be using another MSP. And so now the conversation is different. It's not selling them on the value of managed services. It's selling them on how you're going to do a better job. Right? And we're going to go over that in the next session on really how do you do differentiation, how do you close deals, how do you pitch the product, or pitch the offerings a little bit more successful. Okay. So short answer to your question, what if they just keep saying no? Find a way to keep providing them information. Right? Whether, again, it's through print, whether it's through email. Hey, can I subscribe you to my newsletter? I know you said no, but I truly believe, Joe, that I can provide value to your company. You mind if I just send you an email is harmless. That someday I know I'm confident I'll have something that's of interest to you. Okay. does the session cover marketing techniques? No, we didn't. I mean, we covered some cold calling techniques. So the next session that we're going to have, they're not up yet. They'll be posted tomorrow. So next month's 2 sessions. So the next session is going to be the segue to this, which is you've got the appointment. Now let's focus on closing. And the one after that is on marketing, where we're talking about how do I do lead generation so that you have calls coming in. So if that's what you're referring to, you're really a session or 2 away from some ideas and techniques and discussions on marketing. Okay. Great question. How do I track my call list? Post-it note. I don't know. And here's, I should say I don't know. I do know. I know very well. Me specifically, we use Microsoft CRM. That's our solution for our CRM and our sales. Some people use Salesforce. A lot of people use Excel. If you're new to cold calling, Excel. You have it, use it. It's simple. Generating 40 or 50 names on an Excel list is simple. Where it starts getting problematic is managing that. So what I do is I create an Excel list with the name, the contact, and then I'll create 3 other columns. And those columns will have the date that I'm making the calls. Right. And typically what I will do is, like I said, if I'm going to do a cold calling campaign, I'm going to schedule it over the first 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, let's say. And on Tuesday, I'm going to call these 40 names. And I might not get anybody to call. So I will place in that date column of there, no answer, NA. That tells me that the next day, I have to call that person. All right, so I would just use Excel to kind of manage this right now. Once you start getting into the habit of, I'm doing this daily, every day I'm calling 20, 30, 40 different names, all of a sudden Excel's just not going to work for you. You're going to want to spend the money and get something like, maybe a Salesforce or a CRM or some type of sales, type of solution, lead generation solution. Okay. Can I get a copy of the PowerPoint? Absolutely. This will be available as part of the download. Here's a good one. What's a good voicemail to leave on a 3rd and 4th attempt? It's actually a pretty good question. So if you're leaving voicemails, and on the 3rd or 4th, you should probably be leaving voicemails along the lines of, there are 2 ways you can approach this. Either one, they're going to ignore you, so you can leave a voicemail something along the lines of, well, listen, if you find that what I have to offer is good, please give me a call, otherwise I'll stop bothering. Or what I prefer is, no, actually I'm never going to stop until you pick up the phone. So my voicemail for someone that just won't answer that I know is there because they have voicemail is, hey, Bob, listen, I know I've tried 3 or 4 times to get in touch with you, and I guess I just keep missing you. I'm sorry. What I'll do is I'll start trying different times. But don't worry, Bob. I'm not going to rest until you pick up the phone and we have a good conversation. So I promise you I will find a way to get in touch with you. You leave a message like that, and I'll tell you what, they're going to pick up the phone. Because if they don't want to talk to you, they're going to pick up the phone and tell you. And if they do, okay, now at least you got a shot. Right? So I would leave something along those lines, depending on your comfort level, and it is about comfort, and how many times you called. If you've called 15 times, then it's probably not worth your time anymore. What do we have here? Sorry, this little window they give me for questions is not that good. So let's see, Matt, Bryce. I'm trying to read it here. Okay. Do you think cold calling is more effective than door knocking? Okay, good. So great question. Do you think cold calling is more effective than door knocking, and do you mix them? I mix them. All right, so all of and I don't think one is more effective than another. I think they're different approaches to getting new leads. So what I would do is, if I go back to, let me go back to this. If I were to do kind of like a sample opening, like a number 2 or a number 3, where I'm approaching businesses that are in an area of another business that I already manage, and I'm using the similar issue approach, we'll say, number 2 here, I would actually do a call campaign to this and then a door knock campaign around it, especially if I left a voicemail. It's a great, great way to try and do that. So you can leave a voicemail, hey, listen, some of our guys are having similar issues. Now when you're knocking on the door, which is very hard to do, if any of you have been in the Robin Robbins seminar, she calls this a 5 and drop, right? And the concept is, all right, present a folder, here's your offering, go door to door. leave your offering on the counter. By following up a call or a voicemail that you left, you have a purpose for being there. Okay. Hey, Diane, listen, I didn't get anybody last week, but I left a voicemail here. I think it was on your line. This was about some network issues we were having. I'm just over there managing, Angie's Cafe, and I'm telling you, the network issues, they're pretty prevalent over there because of these power outages. Just wanted to check and see if you guys are having something similar to this. And she might say, no, yes, we do, or no, we don't. Okay, well, listen, if you don't, here's my contact information. I just wanted to drop off a card, experience some stuff. If you wouldn't mind, maybe if you have a card, I could just shoot you my contact information through an email. And, if you do experience some of these things, I'll let you know. That's how I would piggyback off of the two. I wouldn't do one or the other unless they are insanely working for you. If you are a master at cold calling, don't ever step foot outside. I mean, why would you do that? Pick up the phone. You'll do a lot more calls by just picking up the phone and doing it. If you are a master at walking around a strip mall and getting, out of 10 stores, you get 3 or 4, go research where the strip malls are. Because that's where, if that's your bread and butter, that's what you want to do. Most of us aren't. Right? So I would use a combination approach with that. Okay, great question. I'm wondering how you get the point of contact's name in the first place. So very, very good question. How do you build your list to begin with? Okay. Now, the thing that I don't recommend is you see all these cheesy type of directories out there. For $240, download every business in the state of Florida or Tennessee or New Zealand or whatever it is. Whatever you do, don't go to those things. Don't do your sales genies. Don't do your Hoovers type stuff where they're mass lists that you need to sort through. Chances are you are on the social networks you need to be to find viable names. All right? If you have no leads whatsoever, no leads, no list, things like that, I would do 2 things. I would, number one, and this is going to assume that you have clients, so let's start there. I'm going to assume that you have some customers. I would call your customers and say, look, I notice I've been managing your company for 3 or 4 years. I'm trying to expand the business so I can provide some better support. I wanted to know, do you know anybody in your industry that might benefit from the solutions that I'm providing you? And get some names. And I really can't think of it. You can't think of one person, not anybody at all? No, I can't. Well, if you do, let me know because I'm paying a referral fee. Oh, you are? Yeah. I'm offering $100 for everybody that comes. I really want to start trying to build my business. They are business owners. They will understand that you're trying to own your business. A lot of people are afraid to ask for referrals from their customers because, how am I going to ask for a referral? If you're doing a good job, why wouldn't they want to refer you? Why wouldn't they want to say, hey, listen, talk to this guy. He knows what he's doing. He's going to help you. He's going to eliminate your risks or reduce them. All right, so that would be one approach I would do it. If you don't have any customers whatsoever, and when you're starting from new, and I've dealt with a good amount of companies that do this, all right, LinkedIn is your friend. Jigsaw, the older Jigsaw was your friend. I mean, since they got bought, they haven't been. But certainly LinkedIn. And I would pay for the premium membership of LinkedIn. They actually now have a new membership that I haven't used yet, but I looked into it when it came out. It's a salesperson membership where LinkedIn will provide you with leads of people you're trying to target. So in LinkedIn, you could go and say, I'm looking for customers in a 50-mile radius of this area, and they have to have employees between 5 and 25, make $2 to $5 million, and they have to be in healthcare. LinkedIn's actually going to send you contact names of people in that area. I definitely would check that out. I just saw that really about a week ago. Right? But if you don't subscribe to that, you can do that research. You can absolutely do that research. One of the quickest ways to do research is to just start networking with people. And people say, well, what do you mean? Go into LinkedIn, do a search for your location. I live in Tampa, so I'm going to do a search for Tampa and show me all businesses in Tampa. All right, well, now I start filtering for the businesses I want. Show me all healthcare businesses in Tampa. Great. Here's a list of all of the doctors or all of the office managers or whoever I want to call. Now I want to click the connect button. Connect, 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 connect. And here's a little trick that you can do, and this is a little bit different than cold call marketing. All right, but by clicking connect, as soon as that person accepts your request, your friend request. Now you've got their contact information. You add it to your list. But more importantly, now you've got a way to start your conversation. Hey, Jody, I noticed I reached out to you to LinkedIn, and I really appreciate you, accepting my friend request. The reason I was reaching out is I noticed you're in healthcare, and, we manage Dr. So-and-so. He's right up the road from you. And he's really having some issues with healthcare and HIPAA compliancy, and I thought that might be some of the things you guys are struggling with. So I just wanted to see if I could have an opportunity to talk to Dr. X at your location and see if we can, help solve some of these issues you might have. Right? Now you're following up on something they reacted to. It's actually a very, very cool thing to do, or very useful. It's a useful thing and a useful technique to use when you're trying to get new leads. You could do that on LinkedIn. You could do it on Twitter, which you start getting as soon as somebody becomes a follower. Oh, hey, I noticed you're a follower. You could do it on Facebook and all of the social networks. And forgive me, I'm obviously focusing on the U.S.-based social networks. If there are the equivalents out there across the world, then you would use those. But I would do that as far as generating lists, generating people that you want to call. Could you use a phone book? Yeah. I mean, when all else fails, the new phone book is Google, right? So if you're focusing on businesses, focus on, here's a very good way that I helped one customer that I could think of, brand new, generate list. What he was offering, his situation was a bit unique. He was offering managed service packages that included end-to-end network management, monitoring, things like that, but also web hosting, web development, and web maintenance. Right? So that was part of his package. So what we did was we searched for, not doctors, we searched for businesses in his area, and he was in Phoenix. So I looked for all businesses in his area, and under Google that have where the page was less than a month old. And basically what that did was it started giving him websites that were created in less than a month. And it was a bit manual. I mean, this took a couple of weeks for him to do. But he would spend a couple hours a night, look for these lists, look at the website that people have created, and go, wow, this really stinks. But I know they threw it up there, and I know it's brand new to them, and here's their contact. And now he's got something to talk about. Hey, notice you just created your website. Hey, it looks good. You might consider some themes. But by the way, this is what we do. Right? And that was one kind of creative way that he used to build his list. And he built it very effectively. I think we ended up getting a little over 400 leads that way. I think, kind of a big area. Some of them, shaked out. They weren't true businesses. I'd say they're more the mom and pop consulting. Again, going back to the viability of the lead, you probably don't want to get the one home user shop that's selling buttons that they make, and they know how to make a website. So I can't see selling managed services to that. But for your viable businesses, do some Google searches. I forgot the name of the book. There's an excellent book on doing very crafty Google searches with the, the different codes, the plus and then the $sign and things like that. And what I'll do is I'll provide that. There's that and another book list. I typically provide a book list with resources. One that I mentioned earlier called There's No Such Thing as Talent. An excellent, excellent book that really deals with sales. Again, the name of it, No Such Thing as Talent. It deals with sales, but it deals with sales by holding up other people that are professional athletes. And what they talk about is someone like Tiger Woods. So you know why Tiger Woods was so successful? Everyone thinks, oh man, he's great at golf, and he is great at golf. But do you know why he's great at golf? Because by the time he was 8, he had swung a golf club over 30,000 times. Most of us don't swing a golf club that much in our life. Why was Beethoven great? Because he had played more notes than most people before he was 6. Right? So the book, There's No Such Thing as Talent, actually goes and reinforces the idea that once you find the magic formula, if you repeat it, you will become an expert at it. It's a very, very good book. But anyway, I digress. Let me get to a couple more questions. Again, I know we ran way over. I'll just get really just kind of 2 more. Let's see here. Do you have specific pitches for healthcare? It really depends on what you're solving. The big thing that we're seeing here in the States on healthcare is a lot of the systems that you use to manage healthcare are migrating off of on-premise and into the cloud, right? So you're having, the healthcare, the EMS and the EMR systems out there that healthcare providers use, doctors use, traditionally they needed to be on the network, and now they're moving towards the cloud. And if your pitch had always been, well, listen, we're going to monitor and maintain those systems for you, you're losing that a little bit because now those systems are not on the location, they're not on the network. So if you're in that situation, what I would do is figure out a way to sell the value of, listen, we're going to make sure that your connectivity to those systems are there. Or more importantly, one of the big issues with moving those systems off to there is that every time your browser gets updated for, a nurse or something like that, typically it's not going to work with that hosted system, right? Because now those browsers are being updated independently and that system's being updated independently. Oh, hey, yeah, this cloud service provider updated the MR system and it only will work on IE 10 and everybody in your office has IE 8. All right, so there are different value propositions you can build on there. The value is you're reducing the risk of their nurses not being able to connect. Right? That's the value, reducing the risk to what? All right, so when it comes to going back to your question, are the specific pitches for healthcare, depends on your niche. What I think works well is, doctors, they have the money to pay for good services. They don't want to overpay. They have the money to pay for good services. Focus on connectivity, and reliability, certainly reliability. For any of you that have the, the horrible experience of, Hurricane Sandy up in the Northeast, anybody that was not on backup, to say it bluntly, you guys were screwed. The clients, they just got screwed. They lost just about everything. A buddy of mine is the vice president for a large healthcare system up there, and 2 of his hospitals weren't even on backup, and they lost all patient data in those hospitals because the servers were in the basement. Right? So you can really provide some value-based offerings, not just on connectivity and network operability, but also on retention and making sure that those files are located physically off-site as well as replicated off-site. 2 important things. Okay. All right, let's just kind of go through real quick. Any more questions? I don't see any, so let me fast forward here and show you my contact info or how you can get in touch with me. Well, actually, this says the media one. If you need to get in touch with me, it's just mike@naveriskusa.com. I'll answer whatever questions you guys have. Media, I'm sure they'll forward it to me as well. But for those of you on the line, I really appreciate your time today. I know we went over, as we did in the last session, but really good, healthy discussions and conversations. Any questions, please let us know. And for those of you that are interested in seeing how Naverisk can be used to, kind of build these managed service practices and how you could use this to build and solve the problems and reduce the risk, please give us a call here at Naverisk.com, NaveriskuSA.com, wherever your local Naverisk provider is. And we'd be happy to jump on a screen share, show you around the product, and show you how you can use this to generate more business and get more leads. Okay? But until then, I really do appreciate everybody's time, and have a great evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks a lot.